So before we go any farther, I'm going to set up our render settings. So if you go up here to the top where it says rendering, you go to render setup or F10 on your keyboard. It'll bring up your render settings. And before we get too far into this, because we're going to go over this later, if you just scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says sign renderer, right now it's at the default scanline renderer. We're actually going to change that to the NVIDIA Mental Ray. This is just so we can use some different lighting methods that are better than the traditional renderer. So we're going to X that out, and now we're going to go and we're going to look at our materials. We're going to add materials to our objects. So if you hit the M button on your keyboard, it brings up your material editor, and we're just going to look at the compact one for now. So these are essentially blank materials. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make these a little bit more dynamic and interesting. So the diffuse, that's the color that your object is gonna be. So you do green, blue. So notice it changes up here. You can also bring this up. And specular. That's the way the light hits it. So it actually doesn't have any specular on it right now. So notice how the objects gets shinier, and there's the glossiness. So if you want to make the object look wet, or maybe like a plastic coating, just increase the glossiness. And so you can change the specular color, and that'll just kind of give the object a completely different feel. But we're not going to mess with that right now. Oh, and then there's also the opacity. If you click this button, a little checkerboard here where it says background, it'll give a background to your object that helps with a lot of things. For instance, seeing the effect of opacity, reflection, and various things like that. But we're gonna add a wood texture to this. So we're gonna have a wooden chair on a wooden floor. So in order to do that, we're gonna hit this little box right next to the color diffuse box, and it gives us quite a few options. You can put a checkerboard on your material, or various things like that. But we're not gonna mess with that. But if you go to the top and hit bitmap, you can import your own file. So I'm just going to grab a wood texture that I found online. So there it is here. This will be for our floor. Take a minute to. All right. So that's our wood texture. And I like to bring the blur down all the way just so we can get some more of that detail. And now we're going to apply it to our plane. And the way you do that is you simply just grab it and drop it. And right now, you don't see it, but if you hit this little checkerboard with a light in front of it, it should show up. So that doesn't look too bad, though. It's a floor, so our wood grain wouldn't be that big. So if you go over here to tiling, we're going to just increase that a little bit. So notice how, see, we can tile it both ways, but this way does not look quite as good. So we're going to leave it like that. That doesn't look too bad. We'll just leave it at 4. Alright, and now if you go to this drop down, we can go back to the main page. Right now we're in the bitmap view. We're going to go back to the original. And I actually kind of like how glossy this is. We'll do something like that. And now you can add more assets to the material itself. So if you click on maps here at the bottom, you scroll down, there's quite a few things. We're going to put a little bit of a reflection on this floor. So if you click that, and we're going to click this where it says none on the right side of reflection, and we're going to choose ray trace. So notice how it is now reflecting this checkerboard pattern that we have behind it. Alright, take two. Shake, stop. So we're gonna go back to our. Alright, so notice how it reflects now, the checkerboard pattern around it. Now you can add various. You can manipulate the reflection more so. We're just going to leave it as is for this tutorial, though we are going to drop down the amount of reflection that we're going to see. I'm going to drop it down pretty low to 15, or maybe even lower. We'll do like 10, just so we kind of get that hint of reflection and glossiness. Even lower maybe. There we go. Just so we know it's there. But it's not overpowering. Now we're going to do the material for the chair. I think the material for the floor is fine. So if we click on our second material, we're going to click on a different sphere up here. And we're going to again go to diffuse, the box next to it. Go to the top, bitmap. Now we're going to go to this wood texture. And again, we're going to drop down the blur. We're going to go back to our main page, and that's all we're going to do with that right now. So if you grab your texture and drag it onto your chair, and again illuminate the texture, it looks odd. So again, if you hit the bottom right hand corner, it'll maximize the viewport you're in. And if you click on your object and click Z, it'll focus on your object. So if you notice, we're getting some really weird textures here. So in order to fix that, you need to map your object. So we're going to go back over to here, the modifier list. We're going to choose this drop down. So traditionally, if you were to add a texture to an object, be very specific with it, you would unwrap your UVW, which is what you call the skin on the object, and then you'd go into another program, for instance Photoshop, and paint what textures you'd like onto your object. Though we're just going to choose the UVW map, which is a very simple, quick way to do certain types of objects. For instance, this chair, I think we're going to be fine. So notice it's not that much better, but that's because if you look over to the side, under mapping, we're on planar, right? And if we go through these, we're going to see very different effects, giving us very different looking textures. But what we're going to use is box. So essentially what's happening is a projector essentially is hitting this chair from each side with the texture that we want. Each side of the square. And so if we wanted to manipulate the box, if you go over here and hit Gizmo, we can change the size. Notice how that affects the texture. Maybe we'll do something like that. And that will affect how the texture hits the object itself. So it's not perfect, but this is just kind of a quick way to do some simple